Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, readers, pleaders, and orc breeders, welcome along to the Joe Spider YouTube channel where we discuss books and little else. And if you're new here, I am an unapologetically bookish young gentleman who is also unswervingly mercantile, with an adamantine, almost Napoleonic desire for self-advancement and political office. And so I'm using BookTube as a means to that end only. And interestingly enough, if you are wanting to be part of the round table, capital R, capital T, for when I do eventually assume power and the Prime Ministership of Great Britain, and you want to be part of my little clique, my coterie, my retinue, then the first 1,000 subscribers will be indeed those people. So if you would like to register your interest, there are still a few madly sought after places available. I think we're about 50 shy just now. So if if you're already subscribed, tell your mother, tell your parents, tell your sisters, tell your nephews, or indeed if you're new, smash that button. Yes, it would be nice to welcome 2024 with 1,000 subscribers, given I've only been on here for 3 months. But anyway, let's get on. This is a little bit of a yearly roundup from myself. I pretty much to the detriment of everything. Deprivation of everything else in the bookish world. I pretty much devote myself to classics largely and a bit of non-fiction. So I thought I'd do a bit of an annual roundup as to what I've read. I've only been on BookTube for 3 months, so I haven't everything that you see, or many of the things that you see here. I will not have reviewed because I simply didn't have a YouTube account at the time that I read them. But nonetheless, I'll try and give you some detail and regale you with my absolutely brilliant insight, as I'm sure you'll agree. So, let us, without further ado, get on. I shall take a little sip of my vodka-induced orange juice, infused orange juice, rather. And let us begin. So this is George Eliot's Middlemarch. This is the one book to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them, folks. If that weird hypothetical situation given out to you by your playground friends when you were very young, if you were to be, as I say, hypothetically marooned on a desert island and were only allowed to take one tome forever to take, this would almost certainly be the one that I would have in my satchel. If you had nothing but coconuts and conkers to entertain you, then and you were only allowed to take one big book with you, then, as I say, it would pretty much have to be this. This is a commanding, insightful, all-encompassing, completely perspicacious book, which is certainly, from the limited amount of books that I have read, the closest that I've ever come to encountering the voice of God, as it were. It deals primarily with a young, sightly Dorothea, I believe is her name, isn't it? Yes, I think so. Yeah, Dorothea Brooke, who originally falls for a sort of public intellectual who is ailing and is slightly becoming senile and is what is he doing? He's collecting information so as to write his final book on a subject or another. We know that the match is doomed to fail to begin with, but yes, never in my readerly existence have I encountered somebody, a novelist, for whom it might well be supposed that they have spent every single minute with every single character in here. They know exactly, every brow furrow, every trip to the lavatory, every cereal bowl full, every single modicum of somebody's life, every single atom of somebody's life has been covered by this novelist in all of the characters that are in the book. And the passages are gorgeous. I mean, what comes to hand most like the remote worship of a woman throned out of existence plays a great part in many men's lives, but in most cases the worshipper longs for a kind of queenly recognition, an approving sign by which his sole sovereign may cheer him without descending from her higher place. I have not revised that this morning. That is not glued to any of the windows, okay? It's not been pasted to my eyelids by my production team. That was committed to memory 6 months ago in June or July. I don't know who it affects. I don't know whether it's narratorial. I don't know whether it's spoken by somebody. I don't know who it concerns. All I know is that it's gorgeous, and there are 15, 16, 17 passages like that per chapter. It is absolutely fabulous and will have you on your knees begging for more. So that is George Eliot's Middlemarch. Obviously the Penguin Classic. Most of the stuff I read is the Black Spine Penguin Classics because they're so minimalist and so gorgeous. So yes, that's supposed to be Dorothea, I think. I don't know, Forbidden Venus de Milo or something going on there. So yes, next up we have Anthony Trollope's The Warden. Now, I have done absolutely nothing to dilute or mask my Trollopian fervour on this channel. He has been praised and lauded until the proverbial cows come home many times, and this is the one pretty much I think that got me into him. I only started reading him in 2023. I think it might well have been for Victober, so that there might even be a review that I could link, heaven forbid, in those comments in the description section down below. This is the story of a completely harmless, completely timorous and morally admirable warden who has for many years taken charge and has made it his duty to look after some people in what we would in modernity describe as a little bit of a residential, and the potential suitor of this gentleman, the warden, Septimus Harding's daughter, Mr. what's his name, Bold, John Bold, is thinks it necessary for some reason to pry into the errancy of such an account and such distribution of wealth, yada yada yada. And what Trollope is really excellent at time and time again is making it, explaining people's motivations and making, as I say, harmless people inadvertently do sometimes some quite malicious and unfair things. Is it, we're thinking as readers, is it fair that he takes what would amount, again in modernity, to a king's ransom to take care of people? And the description is excellent. He always breaks the fourth wall. There's authorial intervention all the way through this. He makes it very obvious that it's a book that he's writing. But yeah, it's such a cosy presence on the page, if I was to use the non-C critics phrase. But it's really enjoyable, and I'm sure you'll love it. Pretty much the same can be said for my next one, which I think I basically just jumped straight to. This is Barchester Towers. Features roughly the same characters, but it involves two new families coming into it, the Proudies and a family from Europe that are a little bit disparaged and seen as swarthy and discourteous and altogether undesirable. There's a young woman called Madame Neroni. There is again new families introduced. All their motivations are sort of properly padded out, unlike one of Trollope's most famous contemporaries, Messer Dickens. You're never for one moment thinking, why on earth would this person do this as opposed to this? Everything is perfectly explained to you, all done beautifully and considerately. The dialogue is excellent. Some of the set pieces in here, where he completely reverses the roles of what traditionally a female might say in a conversation and what a male might say. Completely flips many things upon its head, and it's jolly marvellous. This is a little bit longer, 500 pages, but this is the prototypically Trollopian thing that most people in the Trollope Society here in Great Britain, for example, will push you towards, because I don't know anybody that would not enjoy this. There is, I think that might be supposed to be Septimus Harding again, so we've got two visions of him, but yes, that's Trollope's Barchester Towers is my other favourite. Next up, while that adjusts, we have a big toe crusher. This is Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov. Now, this is usually fodder for some of the faux contemplative public intellectuals, in inverted commas, people who use, for example, I think it's Alyosha. So essentially, there are three brothers to a really spiteful and horrendously nasty Fyodor is his name. He's the sort of the paternal guy that looks over everything. There's Alyosha, there is Ivan, and there is the final guy is good, Mitya. And yes. So this is, as I say, fodder for people who want to chin stroke and talk about the potential existence of a prime mover or a god or a deity or somebody that is watching over us. What is right? What is wrong? What ought we to do? What ought we to issue? That type of thing. which is interesting in a political pamphlet, but isn't interesting in a 1,000-page book. The reason that I found this enjoyable was because, of course, it has at its heart a bit of a whodunit. That spiteful father gets his comeuppance, even though I think it's the first line of the blurb, but it doesn't. The murder doesn't actually occur until probably 600 pages in. After which, the people that have obviously most vehemently espoused their hatred of Fyodor are mostly are suspected of killing him. There's a court scene in here. There's a lawyer called Fatukovich. I think court scenes are much underdone in literature. I don't read much crime fiction, so that's probably where it's all going to be. But yes, this is a court scene with many of the public allowed to sit in, where Mitya, who is pretty much the main man under suspicion, has the for and against arguments elucidated about him. It's absolutely fantastic. This is the second time I've read it this year. The section right at the end with Alyosha, and who is a very spiritual, well-meaning, the closest person to a morally unobjectionable person in here. He's with some of the little village boys after one of their lot has just died, and it never fails. It's one of the only fiction books. I cry at poetry all the time, but fictional prose very rarely brings me to that. But that scene right at the end where they're going off to a heaven, or that all Alyosha's extolling the virtues of Christianity, yada yada yada, despite being not a combative atheist, but somebody who finds the tenets of some of the scriptures to be questionable. It never fails to get to me. I always find myself blubbering like the proverbial at the end of that. So yes, that's the Brothers Karamazov. It's absolutely massive, 1,000 pages, yada yada yada. Lex Friedman and Jordan Peterson will tell you it's the best book ever written. Of course, it probably is not. But yeah, I would still give it a go. And this is I should note, this is David Macduff's translation as well. Which I'm not sure whether it's of repute or not. I found it pretty enjoyable. It is quite repetitive, obviously. Dostoevsky has a little bit of a pageant for using those using the same phrases. I think this was done basically on his deathbed. He didn't survive long. He pretty much committed himself to the grave after this was written and published. But yeah, it's very, very popular. And you can see also, a few people have pointed this out to me in the past cleverly, you have three brothers here on the front cover who are... I don't know, I mean, that's possibly a reference to Hamlet or something, Yorick with his skull. But we also have, on the back here, it is made clear that there is a fourth participant in that study session who is cleverly and deviously omitted from the front. But yes, it's a big, long murder mystery, so I'd invite you to give it a go. Next up, the penultimate book on this list is George Eliot's Romola. We've already seen her on this channel before. We've seen it on this video, for Christ's sake. This is historical fiction set in 15th century Florence, I believe. Centering around mainly not Romola, but a bloke called Tito Malema, who is sort of washed ashore and taken into the trust of just some of the jovial inhabitants of Florence at that time. I think it's Lorenzo de' Medici, who is the most famous of all the de' Medici's, the financiers in that particular... Is it the Renaissance period? I've no idea. I'm completely out of my depth. But yeah, de' Medici, who is a senior figure at that time, has just died. Everyone's looking for political replacements. There is a religious zealot called Savonarola, who is waxing lyrical amongst the polity and endearing them with his every syllable. But Tito is... it becomes obvious that he's got something to sell, and he goes along to, again, a public intellectual, much like Casaubon. He's clearly a fan of ailing and senile old public intellectuals who are a little bit high-minded. He goes across to him, and he has a very, very virtuous, beautiful daughter called Romola, and then they eventually marry. And then, of course, Tito is an example of realpolitik. He does not really ideologically, just wants to get his grubby hands on the wheel of power. But yes, it's really, really good. And as you can see here, I have annotated it to within an inch of its life. Again, I reviewed this for Victober and found it to be excellent. And it's got a really nice cover here. This is cover detail from Pavonia by Frederick Leighton, 1830-96. It's a part of a private collection. That's pretty good. Are they some peacock feathers? I don't know. Some of you ornithologists might be able to tell me. And the final book on this video is going to be Henry James' The Portrait of a Lady. which is my appeal for which I haven't yet documented on BookTube, I don't think. This is the story of primarily Isabel Archer, who is an American who has a bit of a torrid life in America, really. Thankfully, she has a wealthy aunt aunt/aunt, who brings her to Britain and, dangles her in front of some of the good and the great. And brandishes her and tries to make her, puts together 3 or 4 people who who the aunt thinks Isabel might find enticing and marryable, but that of course is all pushed aside. And it's essentially about the role of the new woman and whether she should be completely utterly dependent upon men, and whether marriage is the right route to go down very often, and how that can sometimes compromise independence and all the rest of it, the rest we know. This happens also, the reason it's one of my favourites is it also, obviously it's written very well. James is renowned for some of his, I think it's sort of stylistic fluency. You'll find if you scan a passage that it's particularly, rhythmically sort of perfect and rolls off the tongue very nicely, so it makes for quick reading as well, without sacrificing on comprehension. And this happens to feature my favourite literary character, I think. Just takes it from one of Sherlock Holmes's characters. But yes, this is Henrietta Stackpole, who pretty much is an old associate of Isabella, I want to say, who finds a way of coming across to America with her. She's a journalist, a sardonic, very wry, very sort of just sort of discourteous in a really positive way. She's a thorn in the side of many people, and again ribs many of the good and the great while she's across there, and rightly criticises some of the shibboleths that they utter, and she's seen as a sort of rough and impolite American who doesn't know about any of the rituals of Britain, and she is unashamedly critical and excellent of everything around her, and is somebody that I want to spend infinite afternoons with, because I know we just get on so very well. So that is Henry James' Portrait of a Lady. Again, quite long, 600 pages, I believe, but absolutely worth it. The conclusion is very, very good. And again, I think one of the sort of common denominators, or some of the commonalities between the books that I've read and chosen for this video, is that men that seem very appealing at the start, they've got a huge castle in the Eastern Hills, for example. They've got a dazzling career behind them, and all of a sudden they pick up a woman, and the woman suddenly finds that the marriage is not going to be to her liking. That happens in at least 4 of the books that I've picked out, so it's clearly a trope or a motif that I'm a fan of. But yes, that pretty much concludes today's video, folks. If you are new here, as I say, smash that subscribe button so that you are round the round table when I eventually assume dictatorial power in this country. And if ever you want some of the government handouts, or you want some of you've got a link in the pharmaceutical company and you want a contract, then I will be your man. By the year 2030, I shall be at the helm of all of Western Europe. So, I'm at the minute Comrade Starling, who is lurking in the gutter, ready to, as I say, take power and wield the fervour of many young aggressive men. So yes, thanks ever so much for watching this video. I'm going to continue with my vodka-infused orange juice and maybe read some more of Trollope's Dr. Thorne, which is what I'm currently on. But I'm waffling. So thanks ever so much for watching, BookTube, and goodbye.